Wow. Looks so dashing, my brother Stephen Mbide, this beautiful Thursday morning. He was acquainting you with the latest in the traffic update so that you could be able to navigate the rowdy traffic and make it on time for that big business deal. COVID-19 is still here. Please, as you embark on that journey, entering the taxi, ensure that that mask is on. If there is any passenger or even anyone within the taxi not wearing a face mask, do not enter. If you hail for a border board and that person stops but they are not wearing a face mask, please do not get on it. Do not sit on it. You would rather walk and ensure that you are actually safe in that regard. All right, we'd like to talk about coffee. Yes, coffee value chains in Uganda. How can we promote coffee value chains also to the world? There was a coffee capping and testing event in New York, yes, at the permanent mission of Uganda to the United Nations, courtesy of Adonia Ayebare, our ambassador to the UN, and also there were other stakeholders like the CEO of Inspire Africa Coffee, that is Nelson Tugume. He was also there. Guess what? Gafoor, yes, Buhan, that is the ambassador to Singapore. This is what he said. He said the world runs on coffee. Yeah, the UN needs coffee, and Uganda has the best coffee, and the UN needs it. That was a very, very strong testament to how good Uganda's coffee is during this two-day event from September 9th all the way to the 10th. So that's some of the good news and some of the avenues through which some of our leaders are going out of their way to promote coffee value chains, to promote our Robusta and Arabica coffee to the world. But then locally, what are we doing in that regard? I do have the Director General of the Uganda Investment Authority, that is Robert Mukiza. He's joining me right now to actually come up with some of the resolutions, recommendations alike that are in the offing to help the farmers who are grappling with little or no market in that regard. Rashula did it during his update. He said the main cash crop within Koboko is coffee, but then there is a problem of market for the farmers, and that's a big challenge that they are grappling with. But we have recommendations from UIA. Robert, good morning.
Good morning to you.
A pleasure to have you. Fresh at Uganda Investment Authority as of July. It's been now 2 months. Please tell me how those couple of days have been for you in office.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me remove, I think we have good social distance.
Indeed.
So
Amazing.
I could remove my mask now.
Indeed, sir.
Thank you very much, and I'm very grateful to be hosted here.
Pleasure is all ours.
The 2 months have been insightful.
Yeah.
The challenge is very surmountable.
Indeed.
And we have an important challenge to industrialize this country. Who doesn't want to be part of that journey?
And indeed you took...
And
yeah.
I'm very glad to be given the opportunity.
Indeed. And of course you took over office during a very heinous pandemic. It is wreaking havoc left, right and center. No one has been spared. So how have you largely been able to continue with operations at the Uganda Investment Authority?
COVID-19 has been occasioned all over the world.
Indeed.
But it has forced us to be a bit more innovative.
Yes.
We have tapped into our digital skills. We have spread the resources, stretch the resources we have, and being able to continue our engagement with our key cohorts, the investors, virtually, even globally. Yeah. So the issue now here is we have been forced to innovate, forced to look for ways to engage our investors, both local and foreign, in a constrained environment. And for us, it has given us the other dimension. So when COVID-19 completely subsides, we have a different tool also to use. If we can't reach someone physically, we now have the experience of COVID-19 to be able to reach our investors.
I see.
Virtually.
Indeed. Yeah. Resilience is key.
Resilience, yes.
Let's talk about coffee value chains. How is the Uganda Investment Authority promoting coffee value chains, both locally and internationally, so that our farmers' produce have a market?
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. I think we have been grappling with this issue. How can we get full value for Uganda along the whole value chain of coffee, as opposed to just exporting the bean? The value at the end is in that coffee being tested. So what are we doing? We have run a competitiveness study at Uganda Investment Authority and identified key areas for investment to increase the value along the value chain of coffee.
Areas?
One is, for example, we need to invest in a soluble coffee plant. For example, you drink a lot of instant coffee here, but it is imported. A lot of it is imported into Uganda. Yet coffee, one of the best coffees in the world, is here. 20% of our Robusta coffee is more than the coffee of Kenya, Rwanda, Burundi, DRC combined, just about 20%, and that's among the best coffee in the world. But we export it and sometimes get the instant coffee. Why don't we have a soluble coffee plant here so that we can be able to benefit along that value chain? So we need a soluble coffee plant of above 100,000 metric tons a year.
So how are those plans coming along to create one?
We have a very key compendium of bankable projects, and one of them is the coffee soluble plant. We are engaging investors to come here. We're already engaging quite a number globally to come and invest in that soluble coffee plant.
And I believe they will, after this coffee capping and testing event in New York, courtesy of the Uganda permanent mission of Uganda to the UN. The diplomats were actually amazed. They were saying this is the best coffee in the world, and we should be actually ensuring. There it goes. Tell me how good it is.
Beautiful.
Of course, the CEO of the same coffee he tested, Nelson Tugume, that is Inspire Africa Coffee, was there in New York. And I'm telling you, the diplomats were wowed. We need to do more to sell our coffee out there. Go ahead.
That is
the soluble plant.
And you go on to the issue of we need to do more to sell our coffee out. So that's something we need to do very much more as UIA and as a government.
Indeed.
How can we promote our coffee in these niche markets?
All right.
The US, Middle East, and Europe.
But first off, let's exhaust the local initiatives that we are doing to sell our coffee within our borders.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And within our borders, we need to promote our local investors.
Indeed.
The farmers are doing a lot of work. They are ensuring that there is the production of coffee, 6 million bags, over 6 million bags is being met. But we need to support them to go up the value chain here in Uganda. How are we going to support them? First of all, you know, we are pushing an industrialization agenda for this country. Within the next 5 years, we shall have 25 industrial parks. And within these parks, we shall support our local investors.
25?
Yes,
wow.
Yes. Over the next, the NDP 3 is very clear. Indeed. 5 industrial parks a year for the next 5 years. First of all, to push that industrialization agenda, we need to stop the import of all these products that we're producing here, add value here in the country. But specifically to our local investors, we shall support you to give you free land in our industrial parks. Secondly, if you bring plant and machinery for these parks, for your industrial entity, this is free, tax-free for the plant and machinery that you bring into the industrial park. Secondly, income tax. For agriculture, commercial farming, there's a 10-year tax holiday, income tax holiday for you. We support you very much in 100% tax deductible training expenditure that you do locally. Then on top of that, for our local investors, our local people, why don't we also match you very much with key entities that are going to offtake your products? We have quite a number of investors, but we're also profiling our key producers of coffee here, and we match you with entities that are willing to buy coffee and support the manufacturing of coffee up the value chain here.
Just like what we saw in New York.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Indeed. That coffee was from some local farmer in Uganda. So.
Absolutely. And we matched them with an entity in New York. So a local farmer's coffee is being drunk by an ambassador in New York. Indeed. I mean, that's the kind of thing we need to push very much. But also, locally. We understand that entities are constrained financially, and I think the government is putting in place quite a number of initiatives to support manufacturing. I already talked about land, I talked about the tax incentives, but also supporting them to get very, very competitive loans, for example, from the Uganda Development Bank to support the value chain process. But at UIA, what we'll do, first of all, is push the agenda to license these entities. There are quite a number of incentives that are open to local investors, and they are not known very much by our local investors.
Yes.
There's this myth sometimes that we are working very much for foreign investors. Yes, that is very important for us, but we also want to encourage our local investors to take advantage of the incentives we give within UIA.
How are we encouraging the local investors? How much money do they have to part with to actually get this free land? What is the minimum investment for a local investor?
First of all, the land is free. If you're going to enter an industrial park, of course you have to have some a level of capital to be able to develop the structure that is there.
Yes.
So the land is free. You have an investment license from us. And with a local investor, if you have just over $50,000 US and a very clear business plan, because you have to, this land we are holding it for industrialization. So based on your very strong business plan.
So if you have a capital of 175 million Uganda shillings,
yes,
we get you some land and other incentives to help you in your operations.
Yes, we help you push that. And of course,
it's amazing.
The business plan that you have has to be, bankable. It's not free land for all. So you have to have some very clear milestones to achieve during that period. So if we give you a land for industrialization and you just go and build a wall and wait for 2 years, of course that's not going to be something we'll support you. We shall give it to someone who is ready to come in and do what's within that business plan. But that is there. No one should sell a land in an industrial park to a local investor.
I see.
The cabinet has been very clear. We are moving around the country to acquire this land free from local governments. For example, recently Kisoro district gave UIA over 600 acres of free land for industrial parks. That land will be also given free to investors. We have land in Namave, over 2,000 acres. That is free land for our local investors. As we push the agenda for 25 industrial parks a year for the next 5 years, we will ensure that one of the key incentives for you as a local investor in the industrial parks is, please, you'll have free land.
Have you also explored...
If anyone comes to you and says you have to pay for land in an industrial park, that's not allowed. And in this tenure, we'll ensure that we ensure that you, as a local investor, do not pay for land in an industrial park. Government acquires it. It's given to us free by local governments. We should give you the push as a local investor. Come and get this. But the other thing that you need to know, which we also need to communicate more, is that in Namave, for example, 80% of the land there is by local companies, local investors. Wow. So they are taking advantage of it. So as we go to a middle income country, we cannot become middle income by importing. We become middle income and develop by manufacturing, processing. Come and take land in our industrial park.
And of course that is a great initiative, Robert Mukiza, but then many of the youth within this country are largely engaged within agriculture. When you talk about agriculture, that is majority of whom young people, but then the challenge that they are grappling with, one of the biggest challenge is access to land. But then you are giving out free land to them. But then we are talking about young people who might not have capital, 50,000 US dollars, 175 million Ugandan shillings. So what kind of incentives can UIA come up with to help those young people within the country who might want to engage within agriculture, coffee if you will, but do not have land? You are offering them land, but they do not have capital to even kick off commercial agriculture, if you will.
That's actually a great question. First of all, I think if you go to the UIA website, we have over 30 business models and plans that you can use. So instead of going very much to come up with new models, you come and tap into one, take it and adapt it to the intervention you want. That's one. Secondly, a lot of our youth need support to access capital, to do the business planning, to be able to access the investment licensing that we give. At UIA, we have a business development and investment promotion arm. We will support you to do that business plan. We will support you. Come to us and let us support you to do that business plan to be able to access capital. There is a facility at Uganda Development Bank. There are quite a number of initiatives from the government for capitalizing the youth. But if you want to now get into the formal sector, come to us.
Amazing.
You might fail. You see, for what I believe is, for example, an elite business plan shouldn't be a barrier for a youth to enter this formal sector. We should be able to write that for you. We have people who have in our office paid for with taxpayers' money. Come with your plan. Let us sit with you and support you to come up with that business plan to access capital to be able to go up into the formal manufacturing sector. So we encourage the youth to flood our place and come and let us support you to get formal in that sense.
One of these days, Romeo Busiku will be making your way to your office to make sense of what actually happens there, so that I could also get one of these deals, and I'll also keep on sending the message to many of my youth out there. There are opportunities at UIA. Many of our youth did not know that because they were saying, I don't have land, so I cannot engage within agriculture. So let's talk about investment. As an investor, Romeo Busiku, where do you point me? In what direction are you pointing the investors when it comes to coffee?
As I said, thank you again. As I said, our overall ethos now is that value chain. For getting full value along that value chain. Go away from just the bean. Go to the end product that you drink. So for what we are doing now to promote that is, I talked about the competitiveness study, identifying the opportunities within the value chain, the soluble plant, the commercial agriculture, going to ensure that we have fairly average coffee of up to $1.5 million a year, billion dollars, so that we can reach our goal of 20 million bags a year by 2030. What are we doing? And a very good example is this roadshow, promoting our products out there. For example, the US, in New York alone, they drink 350 million cups of coffee a day. Indeed. Imagine that coffee was $1. That's 350 million US dollars per day. So this is the reason why we move into these roadshows and say, how can we engage the markets in the US, the markets in Europe, the markets in Middle East, who, from the experience we had in this cupping event, and I want to thank Ambassador Adonia, really for being now an investment ambassador even.
We'll even bring him to the show, maybe via Zoom and so forth, to talk about those policies. He mentioned something, policies to help the small farmer.
Yes, absolutely.
In Africa, especially Uganda.
Absolutely. I liked it. Absolutely. So, for example, one of the things that came out of there is there is going to be an Inspire Coffee machine in the UN. Good morning,
Nelson Tugume, the CEO.
Yes, good morning.
Coffee.
Yes, it is there.
Yes.
So we need to be able to tap these markets and support that. And that's part of the reason we go into these roadshows, to be able to get that.
But locally, Robert, we did run a segment where Rashula Didi from Koboko did acquaint us with some information saying that the coffee farmers within that region were actually producing too much coffee, but then the problem is there is no market. What can we do for these farmers in Koboko and others in areas where there is no market for their produce?
That's, again, an important question. And I first of all have to thank the farmers for heeding the message of the government and entering this commercial coffee entry. Another thing that we need to do also, and also locally, Ugandans might have to take on, is we only consume locally 4% of the coffee we produce, 230 tons a year. Just 4%.
We are still largely on tea.
We are still largely on tea. But remember, coffee is our top export. It is, in the world, it's the second largest traded commodity after oil and gas. Encourage Ugandans to drink coffee.
Indeed.
Because that will have an impact on processing the coffee locally. So, for example, in Ethiopia, I think they consume over almost 20% of their coffee.
Indeed.
Locally.
Do you think Ugandans do not consume coffee because they do not want it and would prefer tea? Or is it because we didn't have a soluble plant that would actually work or produce that end product that we were looking for? And that's why our farmers were exporting beans.
A soluble plant, that's also one of them. But the other thing is we need to just push the coffee out. I remember Nelson is taking these, a lot of his, I don't know what he calls them, these mobile coffee. I remember one was in the park, in the taxi park the other day, in the offices we go to in government. Let's put coffee there. Because our farmer is producing, is doing his work and ensuring he produces, he makes the 6 million bags a year. Let us also support him by creating a market locally and ensure that we drink that coffee here. So let's promote the coffee culture internal, and I believe this is part of the conversation that we are having now, promote a local coffee culture. And I believe as we open up these markets globally, the demand for that coffee will be very clear. But I want to also caution the suppliers of the coffee, the local farmers. ensure that the quality is maintained. If we are to access these international markets, we need to ensure that we meet, first of all, the quantity that is demanded, but also the quality of coffee that is demanded.
What can the local farmers do in this regard to tap into the opportunities we are talking about, especially on the international stage?
I want to answer this with an example.
Indeed, go ahead.
There was I'm sure many people have heard it, there was an entity which opened a coffee shop in New York.
That is Remy 43?
I believe it's, I don't know, I'll get the name shortly. And they were buying coffee directly from farmers in Kigezi. Direct. So they cut out all the business, all the middlemen, the brokers and all that. And these farmers were getting top dollar for their coffee. This coffee shop in New York had branded Uganda.
Yes, Remy 43 in Manhattan.
Yeah, had branded Uganda. The name was fantastic.
Yes.
And the issue is these suppliers. Today you're getting $10,000. After a year you're getting $1 million from this coffee. They get excited, not realizing that at that point is when you have to double down and ensure the coffee, the supply is clear. But they did not double down on ensuring the quality and supply was very clear.
Indeed.
They started taking corners and putting stones in the coffee. And when the coffee reaches New York,
To make it heavier.
The machines of this person are destroyed.
And that's
so
why
that market is
that's
gone.
why some people are saying maybe we should limit or reduce on the middlemen in the coffee value chain.
Absolutely.
There are too many.
The issue is the business ethics. If you reach a stage of reaching where you have got making $1 million a month from coffee, I think that is even when you need to double down and ensure that quality, that consistency of supply is met. Because now you have created a huge brand of people who now love your coffee. The market is continuing. Actually, you'll have more work to do. So really this business ethics, this ensuring that once you have key orders, once you have key commitments globally, that these farmers and these entities do meet this and do take the business ethics very clearly.
The farmer in Koboko is watching right now, and they would like to know how exactly will they, be able to move their coffee products all the way from Koboko to the United States in Manhattan. How will you be helping them as UIA?
And that's why we are, if you look at our compendium of bankable projects,
yes.
A lot of our international investors that are involved in this process will come and support to buy from there. But we are not saying take his bean and take it to the US. We are now saying we are going to put industrial parks in the region.
Yeah.
Let his bean go from there to our industrial park. We process it, roast it, and that investor comes and buys from us in that park. I think that is what we want to do.
And Robert,
we don't want him to take his bean to the US. We want to say, your question should be, how can he take his bean to our industrial park? And our industrial park exports it.
And using that same analogy, Robert, so many people believe if we actually achieve that, coffee will be cheaper in Uganda and to actually boost the intake of the same. People say that people do not take coffee in Uganda because it's expensive.
Yes.
We are exporting beans, and when we export the beans, these countries send us the imports of the finished product, which is so expensive. Absolutely. And they say that's the reason why Ugandans might not be clamoring for the coffee. But then with the soluble plant, us making the end product, Ugandans will be clamoring for this.
Absolutely.
Indeed. So let's talk about how much money does the foreign investor part with when they come to Uganda?
Foreign investor?
Yeah.
In any...
Local 50,000. Foreign?
Foreign over 300,000 US dollars.
Over 300,000 US dollars.
Minimum.
All right. Let's take a look at the clip courtesy of what happened at the permanent mission in Uganda at the United Nations. We're talking about New York. Take a look.
In the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, as you know, the UN years ago committed itself to the 2030 agenda, which is people-centered, and the coffee story fits within the Agenda 2030. So, as you saw, there were ambassadors here that were really attracted by the human story, the small farmer, how the small farmer fits in the whole supply chain of the coffee industry. So we will continue at the UN to make sure that the policies of the UN are geared towards helping people, and in this context, the small farmer.
The stories about the Ugandan farmers and the diversity of the coffee that Uganda is producing. I learned today that from one coffee to the other, to the other, to yet another one, there's a variety of tastes that I didn't know about before this event today. So thank you very much. In my case, as my father is also a farmer, I am particularly attached to farmers, and I was, as I said, very impressed with the variety and the richness of the coffee produced in Uganda.
Ugandan coffee needs no introduction, and I'm holding a packet of the world's best coffee in my hand. I'm a coffee lover, and I can tell you that Ugandan coffee is among the best that I've ever tried. The world runs on coffee. The United Nations needs coffee, and I think when you talk of quality coffee like the one that we have here from Uganda, it is not only a source of pleasure, it is also a source of energy, but also, more importantly, a source of camaraderie and friendship, because coffee brings people together. And that's what we do at the UN. So I want to take this occasion to commend Uganda House for promoting and publicizing and letting us all appreciate the taste of the wonderful coffee that you have in your beautiful country.
I was very excited to see the ambassadors, people from the UN, taste our Ugandan coffees and say, we got to have this coffee. And can I tell you, my fellow friends, what was agreed on today in our meeting, that we shall have or start our Uganda coffee being served here at the UN Embassy at the Uganda House in New York. Thank you so much, friends, for supporting, and this time round we are going to see our coffee being served at the embassy, at the UN, about 20 meters, you know, and thanks to you, Idi Amin Dada, even when you're long gone, to have had a big, big dream of making sure that you got all those proceeds from coffee. Because I know your dream back here at the Uganda House was to promote and market Uganda's coffee. And therefore, our generation, we are bringing it forth to be able to market our Ugandan coffees. One, to have a win-win-win. What do I mean? The farmer gets a better price, government gets foreign exchange, and then the investors get their return on investment. But also another win for the world, for the farmer back there in Rututuru Hills, in the Ik community, in Buramburi, in Tungamo, will get a better price. We'll tell their story back here in the United States when your coffee is branded. Once again, I would say we are rediscovering Uganda's coffee.
All right, that's the event, the two-day event that stretched from the 9th of September all the way to the 10th of September, courtesy of the permanent mission of Uganda at the United Nations. Well, Adonia Ayebare, the ambassador of Uganda to the UN, was also there. Yes, the Singapore ambassador to the UN, Mr. Ghafoor Buhan, was also there. He said the world runs on coffee. UN needs coffee, and Uganda has the best coffee, and we need it as officials at the UN. Well, before that event, there was another event that was held by Remy 43 in Manhattan. Yes, that is a cafe within Manhattan, New York. It was a cupping and testing event whereby they were testing coffee from Uganda, and people were loving it. The aroma, the taste, it is so, so good. But then the big thing is that our farmers are still grappling with lack of market. So what are the gaps actually hindering the farmers' ability to actually export most of these produce to the international market? What seems to be the problem locally and internationally? Well, Robert Mukiza is still here and he's acquainting us. A very good morning once again, sir. Glad to be having you still here in studio.
Thank you, thank you.
What are some of the gaps that you think we could do better?
Thank you again, and good morning again, my friend. Back again to that other issue. We could do better very much on accessing these markets.
Indeed.
We could do better on, even as government, even as us, to go into these target markets, because we know, for example, in the US, in the Middle East, in Europe, there is every person in the morning wakes up and wants a coffee. It's a culture there. How can we also open our outlets there and export from here to our
300
outlets?
million cups being consumed. Imagine if Ugandans were the ones supplying that.
Yeah, imagine now you have shops and you just supply 2 million cups of those every day. 5 million cups of those every day. We can supply that.
You know, Robert
so
Mukiza,
we need to open those markets.
I've been doing some research, and some experts were saying government should not only be looking at the market, but they should also be involved in the development process. Don't just point the farmers to where the market is, but also be involved in the development process.
Yes, yes.
Don't wait for an investor to come and give them free land so that they could expedite these processes. But as government, you can also buy the same land.
Yes.
And then say, where are the 50 young people within Uganda who do not have jobs, and come and till this land, and then share the profits with them? Yes. Is it feasible?
That's very feasible. And the government, when the money that has been put into UDB, government is in this process. Government is taking a very clear stake in it. But you're right.
Yes.
To be able to open up a market, there's nothing wrong with government going out there and opening up the market. If government went and opened up those 10 shops in New York with an exit plan for Ugandans to go back and own them eventually, there's nothing wrong with that. That has opened up that market. That name has been there. Government can pull out, give it to a sustainable local investor, Ugandan investor, to run that, as long as they don't put stones in the coffee bags. Very important. And that's up. I think there is a role for government there, and it's done by various governments globally. The same happens for other markets. So I take that suggestion, and I believe it's something that can be done.
All right. Any other parting shots you have, Robert Mukiza, before I let you go?
Let us drink local coffee. Let us industrialize Uganda.
Indeed.
Ensure go up the value chain. We are going to develop industrial parks, 25 industrial parks in this country, to ensure that we stop exporting our raw materials.
Indeed.
Uganda is one of the most blessed countries in the world.
We are.
Minerals, gold,
40 million acres of arable land.
Arable land, even the people.
Indeed.
Yeah, so let's industrialize this country. Let's go up the value chain of all our raw materials.
The Director General of Uganda Investment Authority, Mr. Mukiza Robert, right here on Morning at NTV. Thank you so much for having made the time to speak to us.
Thank you very much, and the coffee was beautiful.
Indeed. And if you also want to be at the same level as Mr. Mukiza Robert, as far as creative processes are concerned, please ensure that you grab yourself a cup of Inspire Africa coffee, courtesy of the CEO, that is Nelson Tugume. My name is Romy Busiku. Stephen Imbide is on the ground. Shortly after this break, he will be talking to the Lord Mayor of Kampala, that is Arias Lukwago. He replaced Joyce Bugwao as the VP for Buganda region, so there is a fight in there. We'll be right back with that and a lot more.